Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility. Of course, that is Security Gun Club. Hey, we've already done this video right here where we talked about all the fun and crazy good stuff that happened on the national level in the election. And now it's time for the buzzkill, because this is going to be a video for the hometown crowd. And as good as things went on the national level, they were entirely and exactly the opposite on the statewide level. Yes, we had an opportunity to change some of the insanity in this state. We had a lot of big statewide executive elections. We even had a chance to change our representation in Washington, D.C., and we had the chance to significantly improve the quality of the lives of Washington residents through the initiative process. So how did things go? Well, today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about the disaster that was the Washington state election. Okay, hey, before we get going too far down the road we're going down, let's remember that this video is being brought to us by the Sonoran Desert Institute. That's right, launch your career in the firearms industry today, arm yourself with education, and start defending the inalienable rights of millions of Americans nationwide. Through education, they have a program for whatever your need or desire may be. For more information, check them out at sdi.edu or down in the description box below. Okay, Washington, we're going to be doing three things with this video, and yes, you might want to do some breathing exercises, grab about 3 fingers of bourbon or maybe a barf bag, because we are going to be going through the Washington state elections. We're going to look at it 3 ways, okay? Number 1, we're going to talk about the carnage that actually was the election results. Number 2, we're going to talk about what does it mean for all of us moving forward. Number 3, we might get into reasonable rates on U-Haul vans. Okay, now the numbers that I'm going to be using are coming from the Washington State Secretary of State as of 10 a.m. on November 7th. Obviously, these numbers are subject to change. I just don't think there's going to be any significant change that's going to really change any of the outcomes. What we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the statewide executive offices first and see just how bad we had our ass handed to us, and it was not good. In the governor's race, Bob Ferguson right now has 1.61 million votes, or basically 56.13%, while Dave Reichert has 1.26 million votes, or roughly 43.68%. Yeah, this is a dismal performance for Dave Reichert. Bob Ferguson has actually just absolutely eviscerated him in this election. And listen, this is the one time I'm going to make some commentary here, is there was great debate amongst the Washington State GOP if we needed a more middle-of-the-road Republican or would a more true conservative do better. And a lot of people were supporting Semi Bird, and a lot of people who were doing that recently had 4 years ago supported Loren Culp, who definitely was a much more conservative candidate than Dave Reichert. Well, I want you to know, and again, I'm just basing this on the numbers, this is not my opinion, but for those of you who thought that a moderate Republican would perform vastly better in the state of Washington than a true conservative, the numbers don't bear that out. Because when we take a look at the current election right here with Dave Reichert and Bob Ferguson, and then we go back and we take a look at what happened in the 2020 race, well, Jay Inslee got 55.56% of the vote, and Loren Culp got 43.12% of the vote. They're running basically the exact same numbers and percentage points. So, you know, I'm not thrilled with Dave's campaign. I will probably be doing another video about that a little bit later, but it's just going to be crying over spilled milk at this point because he's done. Now, the other executive races, we didn't fare any better. And what I want you to do is take a look at the similarity in the percentages, because you're going to see just how far the Washington State GOP is lagging behind in popular vote. For Lieutenant Governor, Denny Heck has 56.45% of the vote. His Republican challenger, Dan Matthews, 43.44% of the vote. Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, who candidly should just forfeit the job for the job that he's done in undermining our Constitution, but he's comfortably winning. Steve Hobbs has 59.58% of the vote. Dale Whitaker, 40.33% of the vote. For Treasurer, Mike Pellicciati, 57.81% of the vote. Sharon Hannick, 42.1% of the vote. For Auditor, another position that candidly the person should have just been disqualified from running again. When you're missing $1.17 billion, I'm just saying, but Auditor didn't fare any better. Pat McCarthy currently has 58.53% of the vote. Matt Hawkins, 41.35%. Attorney General, there was no race that I cared more about. There was no race that we were involved in more, and there's no candidate that I actually have more affinity for on the statewide level than Pete Serrano. I think Pete ran a fantastic shoestring campaign that was basically his Twitter account and my Twitter account, but Because Nick Brown right now has 56.13% of the vote and Pete Serrano has 43.78% of the vote. Office of Public Lands, Dave Upthegrove has 52.94% of the vote. Jamie Herrera Butler, 46.84% of the vote. Supervisor of Public Instruction, Chris Rakedal should have basically been disqualified from seeking re-election when he flat out said, I'm going to ignore the will of the voters and not enforce what the initiative process told me to enforce. But guess what? He's cruising as well. Chris Rakedal currently has 53.38% of the vote. His challenger, David Olson, 46.06% of the vote. Office of Insurance Commissioner. This is a big one. I told you all on this video right here, this is a big thing. And your insurance commissioner could really make life miserable. Well, guess what? Things are about to get pretty miserable because Patty Curterer currently has 57.09% of the vote. Phil Fortunato, 42.8% of the vote. And listen, there's a trifecta in there that we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, there was some national races on a statewide level. What I mean by that is United States Senate, United States House of Representatives, things such as that. How did we do there? Yeah, we didn't do too good either. For U.S. Senate, Maria Cantwell now has 59.68% of the vote. Dr. Raul Garcia, 40.08% of the vote. I know Dr. Raul Garcia personally. I've known him for a number of years, long before he ever decided to get into politics. I believe in the guy. I thought he had a good, strong message. Candidly, he got wiped out in this race. And then when you go to the United States House of Representatives, there's only two races to brag about. Okay, first of all, kudos and congratulations to fellow Coug, Michael Baumgartner, out there in the United States 5th Congressional District, kind of the Spokane, Pulmonary, and all of that. He won very convincingly in his election, but he's replacing Kathy McMorris Rodgers. So the Republicans have not picked up a seat there. They have just merely replaced Kathy McMorris Rodgers. Kudos to the people out in the 5th District. You did the right thing. You elected a fantastic candidate. The only other Republican House of Representative to win re-election is Dan Newhouse out there in that part of the state as well. Dan Newhouse has always been a controversial guy because let's remember he voted not once but twice to impeach Donald Trump. Beyond that, every other potential United States House of Representative race is going to the Democrats, including the race down in Southwest Washington. Because in the 3rd Congressional District, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez currently has 51.65% of the vote. Joe Kent only has 47.98% of the vote. Now, we're not calling that one yet necessarily, and I don't think anyone else has either. But listen, the trend is not well, and we think that Joe Kent is actually going to lose for the 2nd election cycle in a row. And if you think that's bad, Washington, listen, we had a chance to significantly improve the quality of our life through the initiative process. How did those do? Not good. We're 1 for 4. Let me break them down for you. Initiative 2066, which would repeal the natural gas ban, is passing right now by a vote of 51.35% to 48.65%. And that's where the good news ends, because any of the other initiatives, which could have significantly benefited all Washingtonians by relieving tax debt from us and tax burdens, well, they're failing miserably. Initiative 2109 to repeal the capital gains tax. Currently, the no votes have 63.38%. The yes votes only have 36.62% of the vote. Initiative 217, you know, the one to repeal the carbon tax, because, hey, our gas prices aren't out of control here, right? Well, how's that doing? Well, it's getting killed right now. The no votes have 61.74% of the vote, while the yes votes only have 38.26% of the vote. Initiative 2124 to allow you to opt out of long-term care. Of course, you only get long-term care if you get old and die in this state. That's getting beat up too. The no votes currently are at 53.36. The yes votes at 44.64. So Washington, it was a bloodbath. It was an absolute unadulterated disaster. It was a massacre, and it's whatever other adjective or descriptive phrase you can come up with. What does this mean for us? Well, I'll tell you, I normally don't like to be a fearmonger. I don't like to be spreading fear, but candidly, I'm a little worried. Okay, I'm a little worried, and it's because of this trifecta. The trifecta of Governor Ferguson, Nick Brown as your Attorney General, and Patty Curterer as your Office of Insurance Commissioner. Because at that point, they can literally wreak havoc on your life. Now, what kinds of things might we see? Well, I found this on Twitter. PNW Conservative actually goes @UnderWashington right there. If you're not following him, check him out. He's doing some really good stuff. He came up with a horror list of all the things that could happen with this particular state executive government, knowing what our state legislature is capable of doing again. And I want you to know that, you know, I agree with some of these, not all of these, but are any of these out of the realm of possibility? No, they're not. Number one, we're probably going to get forced an income tax, and the capital gains tax will clearly, the threshold number will come way, way down so that literally every Washington resident gets encapsulated by higher taxation. Number two, despite the fact that they're tapping you out with all of this taxation, sales tax will remain one of the nation's highest and arguably will go up over the next 4 years. Number three, the gas taxes aren't going any away, and feeling emboldened by that, they will increase gas taxes, and we will probably add at least another 50 cents per gallon in the very near future. Well, since the Attorney General clearly could not stop the spread of crime, no one can believe that he'll do it as governor as well. We will continue to see property crime and violent crime exponentially rise over the next 4 years. Demoralized already by what's occurred in this state, now having him as a governor and Nick Brown carrying on the message of Bob Ferguson, we will have fewer and fewer police officers on the road. There will be far less people willing to actually engage in that profession in the state of Washington, and we will continue to systematically depolice our communities. Oh, deaths from fentanyl and drug overdoses and things like that? Yeah, they're not going anywhere, and they're not even going to get any better. They're probably going to get a lot worse. Oh, he will weaponize government against any of his political opponents. He will have hate hotlines. He will pass legislation where you can report individuals, and then they will tie that into the disarmament regime so that if you're out there making social media posts that Bob thinks might be dangerous, that will be the subject of a red flag petition. He will continue to lighten penalties for current prisoners, including violent sex offenders. We will see more and more of them paroled much earlier and back into the communities, at the same time while we're depolicing the communities and disarming you. The trans agenda will get nothing but louder around here. Parents who refuse to allow their children to mutilate themselves will actually have the children become wards of the state so that they can assist with that transition. And finally, property taxes, rental taxes, any other form of taxation that you could possibly think of will likely more than double in the next 4 years. What does this all mean? Well, I guess there's two things we can look at it, Washington. Either here, you're going to stay here and fight. And if you're going to stay here, yeah, you better fight. Because if you're going to just stay here and take it, well, there really is no reason for you to stay here. Yeah, I wish I owned a U-Haul franchise right now. I believe that there's going to be really, really good business over the next 6 months for the U-Haul folks. The bottom line is, Washington, is why we may have all been excited about what happened on the federal level on election night. The carnage and the destruction that was created on Washington State that night, I think, is going to be unrepairable. We are headed for some very, very sinister times. As I had always said, I always felt that Governor Inslee was kind of just the useful idiot. The evil mastermind behind all of it was your Attorney General, who now sits as your governor and has hand-selected his Attorney General. So Washington State, we're going to need to buckle up. We got a long, long way to go before we are able to right this ship. Listen, if you got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information's down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, you should know the drill by now. You click on that link right there. You let us know. We probably do it because it's better than any idea we come up with. If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all of that is right down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Keep fighting, Washington. Keep fighting and stay safe.